Welcome on in, everyone, to our AMA weekly, 8 a.m. PST, bright and early on Thursday, or maybe late at night, depending on where you're at in the world. So, we have today myself, Teddy. I am part of the marketing team for Rover and also GeoDNet, and then we have Gary and Mike, who most of you most likely know as the project creators or the CEOs of either Rover or GeoDNet. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in as we have plenty to talk about, especially I imagine most of you would like to talk about the staking. So, here we are. But before we get there, of course, we want to update
Mm.
you about what's been happening within our companies. So, we have had Halloween come up, and we have had some great costumes, as you saw on our various social medias. We've had
Mm.
Hera as Toga Himiko. That is a
Woo!
popular anime character from, I believe, My Hero Academia or Boku no Academia, I think is how you pronounce it in Japanese. Don't correct me on that one. And then I have myself, of course, as Davi. This was a last minute costume. And thank you all for voting on X. It was a great time. That's a sock. And then the GeoDet magazine, for any of you who aren't too aware of what happens in Harry Potter, I won't spoil it for you, but you've had about 20 or so years. And
Daddy,
then we
you
have
actually,
Mike.
yeah, you actually beat Mike, the Chucky, by just one vote.
I know. Mike's costume was so good. I was so surprised when he walked out. I was
Mm.
like, wow, Mike really went all out. As you can see with the overalls and then the shirt, the wig, and then my favorite part.
Mm.
Oh man, if this was a video, you'd see all the action. And then last but not least, we had Gary celebrating on the other part of the world with his pigeon mask.
Oh,
Oh my
This was
God.
cute. Yeah, for a
yeah.
second I
Gary, you
thought it
look,
was homemade.
yeah, Gary, you look full psychopath. I mean, actually scarier than Chucky, which is pretty scary. I rewatched a little bit of Chucky before the Halloween event, and I forgot when I was a kid, I watched that movie, and it was absolutely terrifying. Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
can't wait
this
for the
takes the
remake.
cake. This is even scarier.
All right. And so that's what happened with us around the world during Halloween. And then we have one other thing to go over. For Rover in particular, especially hosted through X, we are giving away some Tarantula X's. The submissions and entries are via Gleam, and you can find that again on our X channel. We've been talking about it pretty heavily within our Discord, our X, and then other forms of social media. Would be glad to have you all enter. Again, if you already have one, then you can make a fleet with it. You can give it to friends or family. You can even give it away on your own social media. And those are our company updates. And now we're going to move on into hot tech news, which is the exciting part. We're going to spend the bulk of our time here and then have a bunch of time left over for questions. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk milestones. Rover Network has hit our highest, or ATH, all-time high for US upload data. Can we talk about what that means for the average person? Let's go ahead with Gary.
Yeah. This is the upload data for every week, and last week we hit all-time high. That means last week our contributors upload 14 terabyte. Yeah, that equal to 50,000 kilometers of data. Yeah, that's huge data. So yeah, that I think right now we got 152 or 150, yeah, LC around the world. Yeah,
Nice. And Mike, would you like to chime in?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting to see the growth and upload data. We're ahead
Uh,
on EU, so we're getting even more uploads on EU. Although last week was not an all-time high.
yeah.
I think the overall
Mm.
data set is just shy of 1 petabyte. So when we hit that 1 petabyte milestone, that'll be pretty exciting as well. But it's great to see the growth in the US. The US is a very big country that has a lot of open space, and there is a lot of interest, obviously, in autonomous driving and robotics in the United States. So it is great that we're able to provide some data for training and model building with a diverse set of countries, over 100 countries now, as we'll talk about, but definitely seeing the the US is just very spread out. So
Mm,
seeing being able to have samples from different types of environments and geographies, different foliage, different road types, different road signs. The road signs in Texas are different than California, different than Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of meaty AI learning that can come out from having data in the US. So it's really great to see that uptick this week.
Yeah, very exciting stuff with our project. And as we see that excitement
yeah.
go across different companies, especially the world, we would, of course, be dismissed if we did not talk about the NVIDIA dataset versus the Rover dataset. So this is what we have. On the left, second to the left column, we can see the NVIDIA dataset, the Rover dataset, and then, of course, we're going to talk about the advantage that we have over it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hit with Gary. Gary, which one would you like to talk about first?
Yeah, I think it's a big move from NVIDIA. You know, they announced yesterday they have open sourced and autonomous vehicle data sets. That's 1,700 hours of driving data from 25 countries. Yeah, and you know that's huge. But you can see the rover data set. Yeah, the combined the open data set and the commercial data set. We got 3 million clips. Yeah, that's 100 countries and 30 million kilometers of data. Yeah, so that's a huge and the 10x of the NVIDIA dataset. Yeah. So I think we firmly believe that if we want to encounter enough the corner cases, yeah, you must collect the truly the massive amount of data. Yeah, that's what we are doing right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about corner cases, can you mention a few or one or two?
Yeah. Yeah, the corner cases is just like for example the tear scenario. We call it tear scenario. For example, the extreme dividers or when or the accident, for example, the autonomous drive the vehicles need to handle the accident or construction
Mm,
sites, something like that, and that means the AI or the algorithm need to know it's a car accident. You need to avoid the car accident. You need to know how to handle this scenario. So they must saw this scenario before. So that's the corner
mm.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
So
have to see it
yeah.
multiple times before. I think this is jogging my memory now of
Yes.
the school bus we talked about last week, of
Oh
how
yes.
there was, I believe it was Waymo that was passing through school buses
Mhm.
when we all know as humans we're supposed to stop. And a big factor of that is because we didn't have
Yeah.
edge cases of testing and providing
Mm.
that to autonomous vehicles times over, right? All right, Mike, what would you like to focus on for this data
Yeah.
set?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd first point out the kind of maybe most obvious thing is that Rover opened its data set first, and I think we've had a ton of interest in it. And NVIDIA's had data sets for a long time, and you kind of got to wonder if the inspiration to open this didn't come from the actions and leadership of Gary and the Rover network. And so that's pretty cool. I do think that we're seeing a lot of utility come out of this approach in terms of business development. It's helping Chris with his job to get paying users of the Rover network. Um, and we'll have some exciting things to announce there over the coming weeks. Dune dashboards being worked on and all sorts of cool stuff. Um, but I'd also say that the scale that we're providing is really unique, and I think the decentralized model is really unique, and that we can adapt to the needs of customers in a way that will be, I think, more flexible and more friendly to customers and developers, especially maybe startups who don't have, they can't go to NVIDIA and say, we're going to buy 10 million GPUs next year. But they have incredible ideas and incredible tech in other ways. So I think it's a huge validation, and We've recently this week we put the data set on Hugging Face, or last week I should say,
Mm.
was put onto Hugging Face, which is a huge community within the AI landscape, and we've already had 100+ downloads just right off the bat of data from the data set. So that gives you an idea that this is high tech stuff. This is not this isn't like downloading TikTok, right? This is stuff that serious physical AI developers who have you need pretty deep skill to work with LiDAR, camera, GNSS data, and be able to provide utility with it. But 100 downloads in the first week on Hugging Face is 100+ downloads, become well over 100
Yeah.
downloads. Really does, I think, demonstrate that those physical AI developers are out there and that this data set is something they are very interested in checking out. And Chris sees this day after day too. We have I think 700 different organizations in the pipeline that have been connected with us around using data from the Rover network. And so it's exciting. It's exciting to see the validation really that NVIDIA says that yes, indeed, this is the right technical approach. You need RTK, you need LiDAR. They've got some stuff with radars, which is pretty interesting. We'll talk about how that ties into the staking in a second that we're thinking about, because there's a wide variety of different platforms that are being developed, and they're not going to all have exactly the same sensor suites. But in order to make those platforms work, they're going to have kind of AI that's trained on relevant sensor data. So we'll talk more about that in a second as we think about how to be innovative and leverage the benefits of Web3 to keep our data set the gold standard.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, the gold standard. And of course, for our community that's watching, anyone who has any questions, there is a Q&A feature. We do see those. For those that are relevant for what we're going over right now, we'll try and answer, but we'll save the bulk of them for our Q&A section at the end of all of our processings. So that is the NVIDIA dataset versus the Rover dataset, right? Very exciting stuff. And now we're going to go into an idea we have, right? This is not something that is set in stone. This is simply an idea, and we want the feedback from the community before we proceed or move forward with it. So with that in mind, here it is, right? Here is our staking model, and I will go ahead and Mike, let's go ahead and explain what this is, or would you like me to do it?
I can take a swing at it. So we've been thinking about how these deepened networks that have addressed mapping and really pure geospatial data collection have been working, and that includes Rover. We've obviously looked at Hive Mapper and Nadix and Demo, and how kind of the models have evolved and some of the things that have worked well and some of the challenges that have been there. And we're also kind of thinking carefully about what our customers who've been doing evaluations of the data have been telling us about what they would like to see in the future. And we came up with this idea that really renting the devices effectively is a good idea, and not necessarily having people own devices where they, at some point there'll be a new device, right? And what's the point of buying a device if there will eventually be a new device to say have a radar on it? So what about a kind of a rental model that could maybe grow the fleet faster in a way, and also provide potentially more value back to the token earlier on in the network development. So we came up with this idea of, instead of purchasing the device, you would stake Rover the same basic economic level as you would if you bought the device. But that stake would then let you get the device. We'd ship it to you for free. So that'd be the second step. And you would earn with the device just as you earn with the device today. And then at the end of the period, call it a year, you would return the device and the stake would be returned to you. The stake would be in Rover tokens. And so this would allow people to, you know, be able to get their base investment in the device in a token denominated form back at the end of the period. And, there's still economic risk there potentially that you'd be taking, but it certainly would, it's not just a hard cash outlay in terms of, purchasing the device. So that is the rough idea. And I think the next slide kind of provides a couple of thoughts on the benefits of a staking model that are maybe superior to this traditional model in deep end where people purchase devices and own them. Um, One of the key things I think is that it allows the network to upgrade itself in a kind of consistent and much less painful way over time. So obviously, physical AI is evolving quickly, and there are going to be new sensors. There's going to be new capabilities come out all the time, and for the rover data to be useful, it needs to be using those sensors because people want to train with those sensors in order to put that IP back into the vehicles that go on the road. And we do see that that is one of the challenges. Now, we hope long term with enough AI and enough training that we can make it a little bit more abstract. Right now, it's quite like people really want to train with the exact same sensors as they have on the vehicle, literally down to the exact same configuration. And that's very, 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 very hard to scale. And I think that's been one of the bottlenecks. But if we have a model where it's, the investors in the project, the people who are doing the hard work of driving the devices around, they don't have to worry about needing a different one later because the network needs that to maximize benefit of the data sets that are collected. It can kind of exchange those because instead of purchasing their stake. So I think that's one of the really powerful ideas here. And a second point of this is, you as a staker, you can stake these devices and then put them out to other people for fleet management. So you can, if you have the, wherewithal to understand the project and be involved in the project, you can, put multiple devices on your account and have other people drive them and earn. And at the same time, all the assets of the global rover network, or not all the assets, but the core assets here of the hardware, the fleet of hardware. I mean, this is a big part of the kind of overall cost of the network is the assets that drive. Those will then be on chain. And I think we don't know what all the benefits of that will be, but I bet there are going to be some real interesting points that by having the assets of the network, the capital, the capex, if you will, be on chain through the staking process, probably opens up ways that other projects can interact with the rover network in the Web3 community and help provide services that could help the community and help scale the network. And then the last point that I think is quite important is that it brings kind of immediate value to the token. And it by having a kind of unified fleet all on chain, you can avoid saturation. That we can say, hey, look, devices can't be staked in this region or that region because we just have more coverage than we need. And that I think can help us solve the problem of balancing supply and demand. And it allows us to provide more coverage in more varied areas, which, as we saw from the comparison to the NVIDIA data set, is one of the core advantages that we have. 100 countries versus 20 countries, and ability to reach more locations quickly is a core competitive advantage of the Web3 approach. So those all strike us as benefits to this approach. And I mean, just speaking kind of frankly, the purchased model approach has been done a number of times, and it's worked better in some networks than others, I'd say. In the area of mapping, I think it's really had some challenges. And so we're trying to think out of the box. How could we improve things? How could we make this more scalable and balance supply and demand in a more elegant way around with the token as the core, piece of utility in the network? The token is so important as is a utility token, right? It is a network token. And so using it in a more robust way for both supply and demand side is something that is obviously the goal of every Web3 project to do that in an elegant way. And we think that this could really be a kind of a breakthrough in making mapping a more sustainable, scalable part mapping or data collection, a more sustainable, you know, business model using Web3. So very interested in community comments on this one, as it definitely involves a lot of work for the Rover team to develop the tech to make all this seamless. and as involves um, upfront development work and work on building out a fleet of these things, which involves capital. So there's risk as always, and it's great to sort of get community feedback before we dive into things like this.
Yes. Soon after this podcast, we'll post on our various social medias, Discord, X primarily, about what the community thinks, right? We know that not everyone is able to join these AMAs, especially due to time constraints. And so we'll have that open discussion there, and then we'll take all the feedback, consolidate it, and then perhaps talk about this again when we have all that data settled and the team has answers. Right. So if you have any questions, of course, you can ask them here. You can also come off mute. I figured out how to do that. But there's also that type feature, right? Q&A. I see Justin's using it and some other friends. Robert, you were using it. Thank you very much for participating. If any questions on this, of course, you're free to ask. We're going to go ahead and move now into our community questions. We can also go back to any of these slides to talk about what we would like. So if you would like to talk, you can either raise your hand. I saw Leo raise their hand earlier, or you can ask a question. So for now, we'll try and answer them as they come in. Let's go ahead and hit that first one. Or actually, my apologies, Gary. Is there anything that you would like to mention that we did not talk about yet for the staking model?
Oh, yeah, I think Mike said it very well. And, from the manufacturing perspective, we don't want to manufacture large amount of the LightCone or the TX, because we wanted to keep some flexibility. Maybe in the future we got the new sensors or the new technologies, so we can change very quickly. And the second, from the token perspective, we don't want to waste the token on the many the large the water road. So I think it's a very good approach. But we need to listen from our community. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And without further ado, let's go ahead and hit some questions. We got some from Justin, some from Memens. Let's go with Justin since they posted it first. Again, if we can't get to all the questions, I will try and answer them in the Discord or the X. Simply just post them again or tag the Rover official channels. So, how many light cones? I think we talked about this a little bit, but just to reiterate for everyone who just recently joined, how many light cones are currently deployed and how many would be ideal at once given constraints on processing before data delivery?
Yeah. Right now, I think I think people can check on our website. But right now, I think it's 150 units of the LightCone. 152, I think, right now, running on the road. Yeah. And but we already shipped 200 more. Maybe in the future, in the coming days, the number will grow. Yeah.
I think you mean it'll grow to 200, not 200 more. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think it's a good start. I do think we want more. We're working with a couple customers who've given us some specific goals. So there will be a need to get more out there. But it's a good start. I mean, I don't think we're looking also, I would say not looking to grow the fleet to thousands of devices in the near term. We want to approach this in a balancing supply and demand. I go back to this analogy over and over again, but imagine Uber if it had 100,000 drivers and no one had downloaded the app yet. Well, that wouldn't be a network, would it? That would just be a bunch of frustrated drivers driving around hoping for rides. Imagine if you had 100,000 people leaving the 49ers football game and they all wanted to catch Ubers and there were no drivers. Well, you'd have a bunch of really pissed off people who had downloaded the app. You have to keep these things in balance. And I think that is really our overall goal for sustainable, sustainable Web3 AI. It has to be balance has to be maintained, and the token and these smart contract mechanisms are key to leverage to do that. So I don't think we're going to try to grow super fast the fleet size as physical AI is, said this on the last AMA, Jensen from NVIDIA kind of introduced the idea of physical AI just in January. And you can
Mhm.
see the explosion and these humanoids coming out and all this activity. You do see autonomous driving really, this has been a year, it's really started to take off between robo-taxi with Tesla and Waymo, expanding the number and area it's driving within these cities, but it's still pretty early. It's still pretty early. So
Yeah.
we approach this stuff carefully. One of the
Yeah.
questions in the
Mhm.
comments was, "Hey, why not set the staking at a dollar amount?" And that would be the plan. We used it. We kind of calculated the token amounts for today's token price, but absolutely, it's really just saying, "Hey, well, there's a $2,500 device, a $150 device. The purchase price kind of remains the same. It's just you're not paying for it. You're staking that amount." And you're renting that device, and then you're returning it and getting a full kind of refund in tokens, if you will, at the end of the period, and you're being rewarded for the earnings that you generate. And we'd want to see those devices be active. So, for example, I think in a more detailed incarnation of the proposal, like if the device is just sitting on the shelf for months at a time, there would be some slashing of the stake because if essentially that asset, that on-chain asset of the network wouldn't be being utilized. It's not generating a return on assets, and so that needs to be accounted for in the network kind of operation. So I like this idea a lot because it people criticize Deepin also a lot for not being enough on chain, and I understand that it's pretty challenging when the customers are Web 2. But this is an area where we could bring a core operational part of the network on chain in a more material way, and I bet that'll have a bunch of benefits.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's wild to think how far we've come 6 or 7 months ago, right? It's been such a long time. Or I guess not a long time, but such a short amount of time for that. And we've done so much, or the world
Such
has
a
done so
such a
much.
large amount of change, I think. It makes you feel like the time is longer because it's like, geez, I mean, yesterday's announcement of Xiaopeng's Iron Robot, I mean, that was just an incredible
Yeah,
display of technical achievement. The way that she walks, it's just a huge. I mean, compared to the Unitree G1 we have, it is really a very different stride. And I think that, wow, that's all happening this year. It's crazy.
yeah, so fast. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go to the next one with the time we have left. I like that. Barrett says, I like this idea. I think one of the best positives is that I generally drive on the same roads. So after a year, my area data would be pretty saturated. There would be not a large incentive to continue to get data from the same roads, and that sensor would easily be put to use in other places. Yes, that's correct, Barrett. After a year, we're still, of course, this is just an idea. After some amount of time, it could be a year, it could be 6 or 7 months, right? But we will determine that as a community and then move forward as a project.
Well, I think it's better than that, Teddy. I mean, I think the detailed idea is if your reward started going down because you drive so much and you oversaturated, you could return it early, get your stake back early, and then that asset could be reused by another participant in the network. So I think there's a capital efficiency with this as well, and there's a green. I hadn't thought about
Mm.
that until your point. I mean, it's green, right? I mean, it's a recycling program built into this too. We all know there's way too much e-waste, and if you've done well and you've mapped your area and you're no longer seeing the rewards that you want from the drives that you have, and you don't have an ability to drive to new places, well, in the previous model, you'd probably just put the device in your garage, or worst case, send it to the recycling bin. Here, it would actually the network, the on-chain network would be facilitating a efficient recycling of that device,
Mm,
and not, you're not trying to figure out how to sell it on eBay or this and that. You're actually just very efficiently getting it back into the network to grow value in the network. The next
mm,
guy who comes along who stakes that device is helping grow value in the network. So I think it's got a lot of merit.
nice. And I do want to be respectful of our time. I know we are at time. Do we have, how much more time do we have?
We can go for a few more minutes. I'm
All right.
good.
All right. So let's go ahead and choose some questions. Gary, is there any questions that you see in the Q&A section that you would like to take on?
Oh, the first one, well, token will be held for duration of 1 year.
Mm.
I think yes. Yeah, yeah. The contributor need to stake in their token for 1 year. Yeah.
The tokens will be held in a smart contract, I think
Yes, yes, of
is
course.
the answer to that. And they will be held for up to 1 year. That would be the
Mm.
duration we think is the nominal duration. But if you want to early terminate, I think the idea would be you could certainly do that.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Yes,
I think the
exactly.
early
Yeah.
termination through it would be included in the contract, and then of course we would go through the same issues of shipping it back, checking out the quality of the product. Is it damaged? Did it return
Yeah.
safely? And then there'll be other issues with that stake. Maybe you'll receive the full stake. We have to look back more into that one.
Hey Teddy, could you bring Justin online? Maybe he can speak to his question about half the economic value. I don't understand this one. How
Yeah,
about
yeah. Justin, I'll click allow to talk, and then you should see somewhere on your screen that you'll be able to talk. Go for it. And then yep, there
Hey
you are.
y'all.
Hey,
Hey,
Justin.
how are you?
Hey. Hey, good to actually talk with y'all. This is great. Um, so I've seen a model before where you put up half the value, let's just talk, the dollar amounts of whatever this is. So $2,500, half that, you put that up as the Rover token equivalent. And then, on that amount you are earning Rover. Because you stake that amount and you're earning Rover, like you've already talked about with your model. Um, if me as the user is not earning those stake rewards and they are instead being put toward the other half of the amount that I normally would have put up in the beginning, and then after that amount is solid, paid for, then the user would get whatever rewards from staking. That's what I was trying to put forward.
Yeah, it's kind of like the inverse of what I was thinking, which is that if you get the device and you don't um, use it, you start to sort of be slashed uh, because you don't want this thing to be just sitting there collecting dust for months on a time. That doesn't work well because the network is out the capital cost to build this thing, and it's not actually producing any economic gain for the network. It's not doing its job. In your model, you're saying you sort of lower the upfront amount, but then you don't actually get any liquid rover until you've kind of fully capitalized,
Use the device,
fully
right? So
used
there's
the
an
device.
incentive to
Yeah.
use it. Hmm.
That's a very novel idea. It's a little complicated. I'm trying there, and my initial thought was to try to make this as just super simple. Like it's like just like buying it. It's just you're gonna get that. You're gonna get a kind of a refund in tokens. You're gonna buy it with tokens and get the same refund and the same number of tokens at the end of the period, and then you earn with it. Um, but I think this was definitely worthy of that is a good potential variation. We should get this thing up on Discord and get people talking about all the different little sub issues we're not thinking about. I do think that has some potential. I haven't thought about it deeply, but it's an interesting idea. It does kind of also help, it delays a certain, again, that the historical problem in these things has been too many tokens too fast,
Hmm.
and it does help address that as well. So I think your idea has some merit there, Justin.
And I was thinking it doesn't have to be one or the other. One can choose the option. Do you want to pay the half and then, contribute to the network
Mhm.
because you believe in the ecosystem,
Yeah.
and the future of Rover and GeoDNet. And then you also come in at a lower price point, which of course is good for any customer.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Do we want to,
Yeah.
Mimins has a good question there. I think I kind of answered it already, but do we want to bring him or her up on stage to talk?
Yeah, sure. I'll request it and see if they can do it.
Yeah.
All right, I requested it, and then you can come off mute if you would like to talk. If not, then we can simply just answer your question. Oh, there you are. Hello?
Hi everyone. Thanks
Hello.
for
Hey.
taking my
Hey,
stage.
Mint.
Yeah, just a question really for if someone held, for example, holding a large amount of tokens and would like to stake for a year, let's say, what kind of benefits that can bring to the table? Potentially, if we got someone who just want to stake the tokens without renting the device.
Well, I think we could try to maybe over time set it up a marketplace where um, you could stake and someone else could take the device and make it earn. Um, there are a lot of it's easier if you would do that, like if the person staking does that, because then the trying to any of these central coordination things get really hard. We learned a pretty kind of GeoDNet learned that when we introduced this sort of remote mining program in India, it got very, very tricky to kind of coordinate. Um, so that's my first thought on it. But in a general staking mechanism, we got to figure out utility it generates. I think staking like everything in Web3, people sometimes instead of taking an aspirin, they take the whole bottle. And I feel like some of these networks rely so heavily on staking for the sake of staking, it scares me at times. So it needs to generate utility. And this case, I think it's the case of being able to stake on the device generates a lot of utility because we're able to kind of manage a fleet and upgrade that fleet and have that fleet on the balance sheet. So I think those are all benefits of this approach. Um, so for your first question that you had asked, is there any penalties for withdrawal in less than a year? If you return the device, no. And would we want to go longer than a year? I think our thought is a year is kind of the right cycle time for device upgrades. And so I think it may not always be a year. It may be sometimes longer than a year that we want, and there could be renewals and things. But there is a pretty quick technology cycle going on with a lot of the underlying silicon sensors. That part, a year does feel kind of like about the right length of time. Any thoughts on that?
Thanks, Mike, for answering.
You bet.
Nice. All right. I think that is it, Mike, unless there's some other questions that you'd like to hit. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time.
That's amazing. I think it was another great AMA. If there's feedback on the format or other thoughts, we'd be happy to do it. And we'll pick up Lucas's question in the next AMA. How about that?
Yes. And again, if
Yeah.
any of you have any questions, feel free to tag us on X or at someone of Rover on the Discord. Happy to see you all there. Happy to talk about all the plans we have going forward with our various projects. All right. Until next time, 8 a.m. PST next Thursday. Yes, that's not Thanksgiving. Next Thursday. Hope to see you all then. Can we get a smile and wave? This will be our thumbnail. Mike, Gary.
Okay.
Gary, wave. Gary, wave. Nice. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day. Have a good night. Good morning. Good
Okay.
night, y'all.
Thank
Until
you.
next
Cheers.
time.
Mm.